so we don't have to make this too formal. So I'm Lixiong, I'm from University of Mississippi. So my paper is about the use of social media by corporate directors. These are the corporate board members. And so our focus is, so our main result is that we find that the use of social media by female directors significantly expand their labor market opportunities. Okay? When I say labor market opportunities, I mean that they're more likely to gain additional directorships. They're more likely to be invited to other companies' board. They're more likely to be invited to the board of larger companies, and they're more likely to be invited to get the board seats in other industries, in the industries that they're not in right now. So now we live in the case. So the relation between this paper and this conference is that this paper is related to social media. Okay? I'm sure you all have a social media account. Do you all have a social media account? What do you use? Twitter? Facebook? Instagram? Okay. So yeah, so most people have some social media account. And so do some corporate executives and corporate directors. Okay? And so we want to look at how do corporate directors, these board members, how do they use a social media account? And what's the effect of using this social media on their company's outcomes? In our paper, we focus on their labor market outcomes. And in general, in the director's labor market, okay, so there are two things that are important for a director to gain additional directorships. Okay. The first thing, obviously, is reputation, your labor market reputation. If you have a reputation being a strong monitor and you're an effective monitor, then you're more likely to establish a good reputation, then you're more likely to gain additional directorships. But in addition to that, another important factor is your network. Okay. Do other people know you? When they try to recommend people for directorships, do they know your existence? Okay. So there are two things. It's visibility, or reputation, and network. Social media, if you think about this, can really help you to increase your visibility on the director's labor market. It could help you to expand your networks. Okay. Especially the difference between traditional network and the social media network, is that on social media, you can reach people that you couldn't otherwise reach in your traditional network. Okay? Think about your traditional network. You can meet other people through your friends. Okay? You go to your high school classmates, then know someone, then through your high school classmates, then you reach them. Okay? So in most cases, most likely, so most likely, and if you know, most likely, in most cases, when we build traditional networks, you know the people you know, you share quite overlapping networks. Okay, so you know network people, and your high school classmates know network people. In most cases, your network actually overlaps. Okay, so as a result, having an additional network connection with a high school classmates, having a connection with another high school classmates, does not significantly improve your reach to other people. Okay? And the social media is different. So this is like your high school classmates network. Okay? You're all here, you know more people. Then there is this other work. Okay? So this could be the high school students in a different city. Okay? However, when you use social media, you could actually reach the other network. Okay, so that's one reason that the social media can have expanded social networks in a different way than the traditional way of expanding networks. Than the traditional way in which you can expand your networks. Okay. So there's a sociology theory on this. It's called the strength of weak ties, okay, which means that so these ties from one network to another, they can be weak. They're not very strong. However, they can be very crucial because it bridges two different networks. So in our case, we studied the use of Twitter. Okay? If I tweet another director, okay, our relations are purely based on Twitter interactions. So that in that sense, it's a weak connection. It's unlike the strong bond I have with my relatives or with my alumni. However, but this can bridge the information gap between my set of networks and another set of networks. Okay, so will allow the other people who wouldn't otherwise know me to learn about me. So that can potentially expand my job market opportunities. So, okay, so we mainly examine whether when corporate directors have a Twitter account, does that expand their labor market opportunities, especially because we know in the director's job market, female directors face more challenges than the male directors. Okay, why? Because the male directors are in what they call the old boys network. So they're more likely to get connections in this director's network. But the females are more difficult to break into this network. However, through social media, this can help them to break into this old boys club. So what we did in collecting our data is that in 2022, in the spring of 2022, we go to the data, we pulled all the Twitter handles of the directors in our database at that point. Okay, so that's how we know which director has a Twitter account and which directors do not have a Twitter account. In general, what we found is that there are very few directors, very small percentage of directors who have a Twitter account. Okay, it's a very small percentage. And in addition to knowing who are on Twitter, who are not on Twitter, we also collect the data on the number of followers, the number of people who follow them, just in 2022. And we also get another set of data from a data provider called Sprinkler. So here we actually get the data on the actual interactions between the directors. Okay? For example, if I tweet Elon Musk, I mentioned I'm a director in the database, and Elon Musk, obviously, Elon Musk is a director in the database. If I mentioned Elon Musk, okay, that mention will be captured. We're going to capture that data, okay, in this set. Okay, just to save money, we don't capture all the interactions I have with Elon Musk. I only capture the first time I mentioned Elon Musk, so I know there at least there was at least one connection, one mention of Elon Musk by me. Okay. So then we construct these two measures we call the engagement and the visibility. So the engagement measure is a measure of the number of unique directors a particular director has mentioned in his or her tweets by that year. Okay. How many unique directors he or she has interacted with by that year. Then we have this director visibility. That's the opposite. It's how many unique directors has mentioned you by that year. That's called visibility. Okay? The more people mention you, then you have we consider that to be we consider you to have a higher visibility. Okay? On the other hand, if you mention more of the other directors, then you have a higher engagement score. Okay? So those are our basic measures. Okay? And so here you can see, this shows the growth of directors on the Twitter. You can see over the years, the number of directors on the Twitter increased significantly. Back in until 2021, there are 540 directors on Twitter. But that's a very small set of total directors. In the US, our sample is a 1,500 S&P 1,500 firm. So that's 1,500 firms. Each firm would have, in general, say 10 directors. Okay, so 500, is a very small number. So I just want to explain to you how we construct this. Next, I want to explain to you how we construct this engagement and the visibility measures. So this is what our network data look like. Okay, so this is in the first year of our data. So that's why you don't see many directors over here. Okay? And the node size is different. So the bigger the node size is based on in degree. In degree means that how many arrows are pointing towards you, how many people are mentioned you. Okay, so the more people mention you, the bigger the circle. So this is based on the in degree. You can see Warren Buffett is here. Warren Buffett has a relatively bigger circle because there are many people actually mention him. The pink nodes represent the female directors. The blue nodes represent the male directors. You see many pink nodes here. Okay, so those are the female directors. Okay, Sheryl Sandberg, do you know her? Who is she? You don't know her? She was the CFO of Meta, Facebook. Okay, so she has a relatively bigger circle. Okay, so that's how our data look like. Okay, so this each link indicating now, for example, here we can say where's Elon Musk? Elon Musk is over here. Tim Cook is over here. Okay, so this guy mentioned Tim Cook in 2013. Okay, and so this is look at this. This is node side represent the in degree. So next graph, I'm going to show you the node side represent out degree. So now the node is bigger when you mention more people. Okay, it's the opposite. Okay, so now what do you find? So now you can see Warren Buffett has a small node right now, right? And then this female director has a bigger node. Okay, so Warren Buffett, that's just indicated. Warren Buffett doesn't mention many other directors very often. Okay, however, people mention Warren Buffett very often. So then, just based on how many people you mentioned, how many people mentioned you, that's how we constructed this measure. This is only in 2013, and once as the years goes on, then we'll only capture the first interactions. There will be cumulative these first interactions between any unique pair of directors. So this is what the graph looks like in 2022. Okay, so there are too many directors here. I couldn't put their names on there on the graph anymore. So that's where that measure comes from. So here are some of the descriptive statistics. Okay. So if we look at the director firm observations, okay, each firm have say 8 directors. Director firm observations only for 2022 in that year. So there are 3,676 female director firm observations, and 6% of those observations, 6% of those female directors are on the Twitter. There are 7,762 male directors, 3% of them are on Twitter. So females are more likely to be on Twitter than the male directors. It's a 6% versus a 3%. Okay. When you look at these visibility measures, if you look at the visibility, we find that there's no significant difference in visibility between male and female directors. However, if you look at the engagement, okay, the number of people they mention in their tweets, then we can see females are more engaging on Twitter than male directors. Okay, that difference is statistically significant. Then let me just get a sense of what kind of directors are more likely to be on Twitter. Okay? So here are some of the things that we found. In general, this regression found that so the dependent variable is whether this independent director is on Twitter or not. It's a dummy variable. Then we regress that dummy variable on these firm and the director characteristics. So in general, we found that directors in larger firms are more likely to be on Twitter. Directors who are CEOs are more likely to be on Twitter. Okay? Directors who are younger are more likely to be on Twitter. Females are more likely. Minority are more likely. Okay? Exposure is measured by the number of other directors on your board who are also on Twitter. So if other directors on your board are on Twitter, then you are more likely to have a Twitter account as well. In general, there's nothing surprising here, but this tells us that so this distribution of Twitter directors are not random. Okay? So we have to control for these characteristics in our following test. And the main hypothesis we test is that does Twitter help directors to gain more directorships? That's main first hypothesis. The second hypothesis we test is does Twitter help female directors more than helping the male directors? So those are our main tests. Okay. So I'm going to go over this quickly. So now let's look at our first test, whether having a Twitter account help directors to gain additional directorships. Here, the dependent variable, this is a linear probability model. The dependent variable is whether this director get a new directorship next year or not. Okay? If the director gets a new directorship next year, then this dependent variable equals to 1. Otherwise, the dependent variable equals to 0. Then we regress that variable on whether the director is on Twitter in this year. Okay? We also regress on, we look at some other measures of Twitter activities. overall, we find if the director is on Twitter, then its likelihood of getting an additional directorship in any given year increased by 1.8%. Okay? And that may seem to be a very small number in absolute magnitude. However, the unconditional likelihood of a director gaining an additional directorship each year is only 2.8%. Okay, so that represents a 64% increase, okay, in the likelihood of getting additional directorships if the director is on Twitter. So that's just an indicator variable. Then we look at if this is really a Twitter social media effect, then it has to be related to how actively you use Twitter to connect with other people. Okay? So that's why in the second column, we regress this indicator on the engagement. Okay? So how many directors you have mentioned in your tweets up to that year. We find the more directors you have engaged with by that year, the more likely you are going to get an additional directorship next year. Okay? Similarly, we found visibility is based on the number of people who mentioned this director also has a significant impact. Then here are the regressions which shows that it's the same set of same set of independent variables, but now the dependent variable changed. So the dependent variable is no longer an indicator on whether a director gained an additional directorship or not in the next year. Rather, it's an indicator on whether the director gained a directorship in a larger firm, okay, in a firm which is larger than his or her current firm or not. Okay, so it's a higher bar now. Okay? And we found that these independent variables are still statistically significant. So that means that if you are on Twitter, if you're more engaging on Twitter, then you're more likely to get a directorship in a larger firm. And if your social media really help directors to increase their reach to the director network, then it will help you to reach people who are not in your current industry, okay, in a different industry. Okay? For example, a female director in the fashion industry may now be known by people in the high-tech industry. Okay? So normally there will be no way that the high-tech industry would learn about this female director in the fashion industry, but now maybe the female director interacted with someone in the high-tech industry. Now the high-tech industry knows her, so now she will get the directorship in a totally different industry. And we found that is the case. Okay? So the only thing different now is the dependent variable. The independent variables are the same. Okay? And so what about the effect? What's the difference? Is there a different effect on female directors and on male directors? So now we just use interactions. We interact all these variables with an indicator on whether the director is a female director or not. So now in the first regression, the Y, the left-hand side variable, is whether the director gain an additional directorship next year or not. So you can see this interaction effect is positive and significant. So it means that there is a bigger impact for female directors. Okay, now if you look at the Twitter variable itself, it's no longer significant. So this variable captures the effect of being on Twitter for male directors. Okay? So basically this first column suggests that it's mainly help the female directors. Okay? To male directors, the effect doesn't seem to be significant. However, so the significant result we saw just now in the full sample seem to be mainly driven by the female directors. And not only this interaction term is significant for when we measure the Twitter activities using an indicator on whether the director is on Twitter or not. If we use other measures, engagement measures, visibility measures, we get similar results. And again, here are the larger directorships, directorships in new industries. The results are all consistent. And so apparently, so far I have not established the causality. Okay? Just means that it's some correlation. Okay? Whether this is due to their use of Twitter or not, it's possible, but maybe these directors are just different. Okay? So these are more sociable people. They're people who are good at the networking. So that's why they choose to be on Twitter. And so Twitter actually may not help them to gain directorships. It's just because we didn't measure their social ability, social ability. So that's why we found this effect. So to address this concern, so the first thing we did is that to include director fixed effects. Okay, in control for director fixed effects. So this will remove all this effect due to difference in personality. Okay, some are more sociable than others. Some are more charismatic than others. So once you control for the director fixed effects, so now the result should be so now the result is driven. So this Twitter effect now is driven by Twitter. Okay, so we're comparing the same director before and after the director get a Twitter account. Okay, so here the result shows that for the same director, after the director get a Twitter account and become more active on Twitter, then this director's labor market opportunity just significantly increased. Okay, so because in general our personality does not change very much, so once director fixed effect will completely take that out, we still find this effect. So the next approach we use to address this identification issue is to use what we call instrumental variable approach. So here we're going to find the instruments that's going to affect the probability a director will have a Twitter account, but okay, that instrument variable should have no effect on whether the director will gain additional directorship or not. Okay? So if you learned in economics, you know that the second condition is called exclusion condition. Have you learned that? Yeah, exclusion condition. Okay. So now it's so two requirements, right? You require the instrument to be correlated with the likelihood of a director having a Twitter account, but should not affect the director's likelihood of getting additional directorships. So what we use is this. Okay? So we usually look at the Google search score in the director's home state. Okay? So if there are more people in that state search for, not for Twitter, we just say, let's say search for Facebook. That's what we use. Okay? If there are more people searching for Facebook in the director's home state, so that means that there are more people who are interested in social media in that state. Okay, so that can increase the director's likelihood to register for a Twitter account. However, that should not affect the director's likelihood that home state Google search score for Facebook should not affect the likelihood of this director to gain additional directorships. Okay, so here is our first stage. Our first stage, we find that the home state Google Facebook search score is positively related to the likelihood the director will have a Twitter account. In the second stage, we find after we use this instrumental variable approach, we continue to find that this being on Twitter has a significant impact on the likelihood of the director to gain additional directorships. Okay, so here this measure now has been instrumented by these instruments. Let me look at just now. We said so the use of social media can increase the visibility, increase reputation. Is that reflected in shareholders' votes for the directors? Is that reflected in how market react to the appointment of these directors? And our answer is yes. Okay, so here in this table we show that if a director is on Twitter, then when the director is appointed to a board, okay, the percentage of against votes is significantly lower. The percentage of for votes, okay, the supporting votes are significantly higher. Okay. The magnitude in director elections, so this magnitude are always small. Okay. If you look at the director elections, okay, so this only changed the percentage of supporting votes by 3%. Okay. So there was already 96% support, and now it's 99%. It's not going to change the outcome, but that's just nature. Right? But it just indicates, there's some change in shareholders' opinion about these directors. Okay. Then we look at the vote. These are the voting results. Okay, so I quickly get over there. So this is the announcement return. Okay, so this is how does the stock market reacted to the announcement of the appointment of these directors. So if the director is on Twitter, then the market reaction is significantly more positive. That's what we find here. Okay. So then, so as you can see, like the impact is different for female directors and male directors. Okay. It has a bigger impact. So Twitter really helps female directors more than the male directors. Okay. One reason is because male directors can more easily break into the directors' network because this is mainly traditionally, it was mainly a boys' club. Okay? It's more difficult for females to break into that network using traditional ways. So social media may help the female directors to break those barriers. Okay? Alternatively, so we also look at how the females behave differently on Twitter than the male directors. So here, we do find some significant difference. In general, we find the females are more engaging than the male directors. Okay, so let me explain this result. Okay, so here we look at, there's a sender, there's a targeter. Okay, sender is the one who initiated the tweets. Target is the director being mentioned in that tweet. Okay, so there's a sender, there's a target. Okay, and then we have these variables. Okay, so these are n tweets. Okay. So that's the number of tweets from any director to female directors. Okay. So on average, okay, that's 1.84 tweets. Okay. That's to male, there are more tweets towards male directors. Then this reverse tweets is this. Okay. So the number of reverse tweets measured this way. Okay. So if I mention you in my tweets, okay, so that counts as one tweet from me to you. And if you initiate another tweet that mentioned me in the same year, I call that a reverse tweet. Okay? And then the last variable is called the reciprocal. Okay? The reciprocal is an indicator. The indicator are if I tweeted you, whether you have tweeted me, mentioned you have another tweet that you initiated, mentioning me or not. Okay? If yes, it's 1, otherwise it's 0. Okay? The reason that we have the number of tweets is not 1 is because even though we captured only the first tweet between any unique pair of directors, okay, in my tweet, I can mention multiple directors in my tweet. Okay? So for example, my first tweet, I only mentioned you. Then in my second tweet, I mentioned both you and her. So now I'm mentioning you twice in my data. You're going to show up twice in my data. So now it looks like I have 2 tweets to you, mentioning you, but only 1 tweet mentioning her. So that's why these numbers are just not 1. Okay? They're just not, okay, so these numbers can be greater than 1. Okay? I think this variable is most interesting, the reciprocal. Okay? If I tweet you, whether you are going to tweet back to me, you're going to initiate another tweet mentioning me in the same year. Okay? So also that likelihood. So for any director, okay, if any director mentions a female director, okay, there's 30% chance the female director will have a reciprocal tweet. But for male, there are only 23% of the males will actually reciprocate that tweet. So that difference is significant. Okay, that's one. Point B. So now we're looking at the sender. We restrict the sender to be a male director. Okay, so if a male director mentions a female director, so the target gender is female, then the reciprocal rate is 36%. And if a male director mentions another male director, that male director is has a 26% chance to retweet. Okay? So females are more likely to reciprocate than the male directors. Okay? So what about when the sender is a female? Okay? The target gender can be both male and female. So when the female sender is a female director, then females are reciprocate 29% of the time. Okay, when a female director mentions a male director only reciprocates 18% of the time. Okay, so in panel B, we look at some other accounts. This is the Harvard Business School alumni account. The other account is National Association for Corporate Directors account. So those are the Twitter account of these organizations. Okay, Harvard Business School alumni or National Association of Corporate Directors. Okay, they do mention some of the directors. Okay. So what we find is that, for example, okay, so this is the number of tweets they mention about female directors. This is the number of tweets they mention of male directors. Okay, so they're more likely to mention female directors in their tweets. So they give female directors more visibility. Okay. Again, when these directors are mentioned, the female directors are more likely to reciprocate than the male directors. We think that's another channel why Twitter works better more effectively for the female directors than the male directors. Okay. So here, just for your interest, okay, this is a 2022 network, and so now I enlarge the graph so you can see these people here. So now the node size is integrate. Okay. I want you to compare this graph against the next graph. You're going to see the size of the nodes is going to change significantly when I go from in degree to out degree. So in degree means how many people mention you. Okay? So what's the largest circle? That's Elon Musk. Elon Musk is mentioned by many people. So Elon Musk has a very large circle. So that one is Jack. Who is Jack? Jack Dorsey. He was the founder of Twitter. That's Jack Dorsey. You can see this. This is the Microsoft CEO, Tim Cook. Do you know Tim Cook? Apple CEO, the former CEO of Apple, Tim Cook. Okay, so they have larger nodes because a lot of people mentioning them, and the pink nodes represent the female directors. Blue nodes represent the male directors. So, okay. So you can see half of the nodes at least are females. Right here are pink. So in this director population, females account for a very small proportion of the directors. However, if you look at the directors on Twitter, females are overrepresented, okay? Because the females are more likely to have a Twitter account. So this is for in degree. When we look at the out degree, okay, here's the out degree. Where is Elon Musk? Elon Musk is over here. Okay, a very small circle. So, okay, if you look at Elon Musk's tweets, Elon Musk don't mention other directors very often. However, now you see these pink circles, they all become larger. Okay, these are all female directors because the larger the node size, the more directors they have mentioned in their tweets. So here's a graph on the network of female directors mentioned by males. Okay, so these are these blue dots, these are the male directors who mentioned these female directors, okay, and who are mentioned the most often. I don't know, Sheryl Sandberg, that's the CFO of Facebook. Indra Nooyi, do you know her? She was the CEO of Pepsi. Okay, okay. Apparently, Chelsea Clinton. Any idea? Okay, the daughter of Bill Clinton. Okay. And so these are the female directors who are mentioned the most often by the male directors. My next graph is the network of female directors who mention males. These are female directors who like to mention male directors. Okay, so the blue dots are the male directors they mentioned. You can see females are just more engaging on Twitter than the male directors. Okay. So overall, we found that the directors on Twitter, they have higher visibility and they have better labor outcomes than the directors who are not on Twitter. Okay. So our endogeneity test seems to suggest that if you believe in my endogeneity test, the instrumental variable approach, direct fixed effects, it suggests that this is there's some causal effect. Okay. It's not due to differences across directors. So using Twitter can help directors to gain additional directorships, can overcome the barriers in the labor market, especially for female directors. Okay, so that's why the title of a paper is called "Does Social Media Help Level the Playing Field?" So our main message is that social media can actually level the playing field for for female directors. Okay, so it can help them to overcome these barriers that prevent them from flourishing on the corporate director labor market. That's our main message. Thank you very much.